All right, welcome. This is Natural Law and the Regenerative Economics series. This is part 8, and we're going to be talking about the law of polarity. So, what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to go around the room and ask everybody to introduce yourselves, and we'll kind of get into tonight's topic. So, my name is Mike Schumann. I am an interspiritual minister, and as I've been saying at the top of all of these productions, I am trying to help others understand natural law, universal principles. And I believe that as we are coming into each other's spaces and creating more collaborative environments, that makes universal basic income possible. So, been given a little bit of information every single episode about how to make that possible, and yeah, just kind of how to change the system based on the way that we treat each other. So before we go around the room, I just also want to remind anybody watching this that if you are a member of the Karmic Margin Call Project's Time Bank, you can log all of the time that you're spending watching this material as a service you are providing, and you can just use the category of workshops, presentations, and the like. So that's me. This is the series, and I think I'm going to pass it to Randy. Randy, how are you doing? What's new in your world?
Well, hi, Mike. Well, like all of us, getting ready for Thanksgiving. Um, yeah, very much at peace. Very grateful to be here. And I think I'm going to take on the title to introduce myself as a spiritual provocateur.
Hmm.
I, I saw that on someone else's profile and it resonated with me. So let's see what that comes from that today.
Very cool. Very cool. So what inspired the spiritual provocateur? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Honestly, I don't remember what the quote was. I am not the author of some quote I put up on Facebook that brought a lot of controversy. Oh my gosh, there was well over 100 comments. I think you had chimed in as one of the people involved with it and such. But the person that I had quoted was highlighted in that quote, and he chimed in as well too. But on his profile, he's a spiritual provocateur. So it just kind of felt like, yeah, if hopefully, much like these conversations we're having, we can be the cause for people to pause and reconsider ideas that they were holding tightly. And
Mhm.
you can continue to still hold tightly to all your ideas and such. But I think if you've taken a moment to consider them and consciously decided to say, this is where I'm planting my flag, and that's okay. But if you're doing it just out of, I don't know, you've been conditioned, it's through a process of assimilation that you've come to your beliefs, then I don't know. People can seem to get very agitated when those beliefs are challenged,
Absolutely.
if that makes sense, because again, they just don't know why this is what they believe. It's just something that's part of their identity and such. So anyway, again, I can go rambling on this and stuff. I'm here to have some fun and enjoy the conversation. I want to listen to what everyone else has to contribute.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Randy. Yep, and that's yeah, that's really what it's all about is creating conversation culture, which leads to collaboration, collaborative culture as well too. So yes, looking at the beliefs, questioning the beliefs, and just really, really finding the common ground as much as possible. Let's go to Nini. Nini, we've it's been a while since you've been with us. How are you doing? And please tell us what's new in your world.
Okay, so yeah, I'm doing pretty good. It's been really kind of busy. My brother just had a baby, and it's his first baby. It's the first grandchild to make my parents grandparents. And people get started, oh, that makes you an aunt. And I'm like, don't get me started. I don't identify with that title. Nothing wrong with, me having a nephew and all that. Nothing wrong with me saying this is an extension of the family. But I kind of feel titles like that give an unsolicited status thing. And I don't like that because, listen, if you're going to start giving me some sort of fake status because now I'm an aunt. I don't like that. So I'm just me, and that's that. And I mean, I have no problem with it for itself, and and the fact it's an isness, like and when parents, or when a mother, or when a husband and a wife have a baby, they become parents. Like I have no problem with that, but like I don't like false titles. So, but no, I'm very happy for my brother, and I'm very happy for my parents. So it's been that, and then then a month ago we had holidays, and it's just sort of been one thing after another after another. Very busy, very, very busy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. And yes, that's one of the things that I think I very much resonate with Nini as well too. Is the titles, the need for titles, and how to transcend those titles, and just how do we treat each other human to human.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and I feel, not just, I think in my head, I really deeply feel it's like, listen, there's nothing wrong with, let's say someone gets a PhD or an ESQ or whatever. There's nothing wrong with saying I have this, I've worked for it, and I would like to be known for it. That's fine. Like, I have no problem. But people kind of get it in their heads. Oh, well, now you have some sort of a title, so I owe you respect. And it's like, well, first of all, respect is free, love is free, kindness is free. That's not something that's owed. That's something that's freely given. And if someone needs a title, I have a hard time. So, I'm trying to say this as respectfully as possible because a lot of people didn't get it. I'm hoping I'm not opening a can of worms by just telling the truth. But no, I'm genuinely happy for my brother. I'm genuinely happy for my parents. And for me, the whole procreation thing is not my direction. I'll be very honest about that too. I don't want to have children, and but I'm very much about co-creation. About being intimate with everybody, and not just I'm not just talking about romance. I'm talking about like having a love and a deep level that can be shared with everyone. And if there would be someone that I would have that marital relationship with, that's something completely different. That is something I would just want with one specific person, where a version of myself can come out that maybe would not come out with somebody else. But I feel that I want to just give love to everybody. And, some people think that means like, I guess your body becomes a free for all. That's not what I mean at all. That's not something I want to get even close to because that feels inappropriate to me. But I just don't like the boxes, I guess, if I'm not being like too controversial here.
No, no. Well, I appreciate the transparency, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing how this goes. Because yeah, I mean, I think that's what I think I'll speak for myself. I can't speak for anyone else in the room or for anyone else, but I think that's really what we're really trying to strive for is just the freedom to be who we are, and to be accepted for where we are at, what is authentically where we are at this moment. So thank you for that. Let's go to John.
Hi, John Pangioki, Mid Coast, Maine. We're having an uncharacteristically warm and calm fall, which we're enjoying. I am a community activist in that I really am just looking for ways to allow the community to be who they are and realize the incredible resources that we are for each other. When I moved here, it was very apparent that that was not the case. But really, incredible strides are being made. So it's kind of a fun way to go about it, and it's new for me because I always felt like hierarchy was better, and it should work that way. And um, I have to say though, Mike, you really do always give opportunities to, for me anyway, to look at who I am in the matter of life on this planet in some way I never considered. And that is a blessing because if I left to my own devices, I'd be sitting in a bar, shooting pool and getting drunk and getting stopped by the police on the way home or whatever. I don't do any of those things anymore, but that's probably where I'd be hanging out, smoking cigars in somebody's garage. Uh, but I am thrilled to be here with you all.
Thank you, John. We're very happy that you have joined us tonight as well too. You always have a lot of very insightful and poignant observations in these conversations too. So looking forward to seeing where this goes tonight. And if Hemant can hear me, Hemant, we'd like to welcome you as well. If not, we'll just continue on. His camera is off at the moment, so we can circle back if need be. But Randy, I wanted to also just check in with you about easier ways. What's the latest with easier ways? And we always kind of give a little bit of a public service announcement about that about your community.
Well, thank you. I have kind of reconsidered how I'm going to approach the community thing. Schools, got some interaction on it, but it's not what I expected to be, and it is a fixed operational cost. So
Hmm.
I am taking that information, going to put it onto a website that can link to a community. Well, I guess we'll kind of say there's a shift with it. The spirit of it is still the same, and that is to share what has been given to me that's taken my life from being one of desperation and anger and misery to the guy that is talking to you now, and that's been done through the principles of recovery combined with behavioral science.
Hmm.
So those who listen here may or may not have heard my spiel before and stuff. So I don't know. I'll let today's conversation speak louder than this little commercial.
Very good. All right. Well, great. Thank you. Yes, and that's what we will do. All right. So, law of polarity. I'm going to ask everybody. We'll go around the room again and just kind of do like a quick association. It doesn't even have to be so quick, but when you hear polarity, what comes to mind? What comes up for me is that whatever we can express, or even whatever we can think of, there is an equal and opposite reaction, or like every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So everything has an opposite. We have narratives in our world about good and evil, male and female. Large and small. So all of these contrasts. I've also heard the concept be described as the law of contrast as well. But I just wanted to go around the room and just ask everybody. You can reflect back a little bit about what you heard me say about the law of polarity, or would just like to hear what is your impressions when you hear law of polarity. And I want to welcome Janet. Hi, Janet. Glad you can make it tonight. So anybody in the room, please feel free to chime in and what is your association when you hear law of polarity or polarity?
Well, if I say something?
Go for it, Nini.
Okay, so what I used to think of also, like you're saying, action, reaction, whatever, there's one contrast, there's an opposite contrast, what goes up must come down. But having gone a little bit more deeply into this, I think of the tensions, we think of like in binary bits, zeros and ones, and things are broken down into opposite ponderances, which is, you want to do the sine waves, the trigonometric function, the circle and cycles of life. And where the magic happens is not at one extreme versus the other extreme. So people oftentimes think, I have to take one extreme, let's pick good. And I have to use my extreme and I have to obliterate that which is opposite, bad. And that isn't true. That really, I have to be the hero and obliterate the tyrant. And that isn't true at all. When I think of polarity now, it's the ability to say, okay, the magic happens between the 0 and the 1, because all the probabilistic possibilities are everything between 0 and 1, and those are quote unquote your 0 and your infinity. You can't reach those points; they're beyond reach. So if you actually were to get to one of those points, if you got to, let's say, infinity, you've automatically gotten to 0 because they're really one and the same. So it's not about that which we call good obliterating evil. It's about that which we call good, learning to find the balance, the peace, integration, the love with its opposite extreme. And the falling in love, like the hero falling in love with the tyrant, the good falling in love with the evil, which a lot of people may get up and say, hey, wait a second, are you expecting me to like go to, let's say, Hitler and say, wow, you're a wonderful man, I love exactly what you did? That is not what I mean. Things that have been enacted physically as evil, in that, you take the wave function and you collapse it, and now you're seeing actual physical tangible evil being played out. No, that is extremely painful. But the only reason that is happening is because we are unable to integrate. If you have integration, integrity, you have balance, you have a deeper understanding, like what is laughter, laughter is you're looking at two things juxtaposed that are so shockingly different. It elicits this laughing response. That's what a joke is. You see a pun and it takes something and it juxtaposes it to something that you would never believe in such an opposite extreme that you're like, oh my God, and you laugh. It's like this overjoy. So that's what our spirit loves. The game of life is all about not trying to take one wolf and devour the other, but having this balance and integration and finding the love, like how example, people think the opponent is the enemy. And that isn't true, because let's say you're playing the game of chess, you're playing against an opponent. If you don't have that opponent, you don't have a game of chess. You don't have a game of chess, you don't learn the strategies. You might as well just play the game all by yourself. It's like in that little Pixar video, like Jerry's Game of Chess. He ends up playing with him, by himself, but he gets into like this, matrix fantasy where he thinks he's playing against somebody else, but really it's himself. But really, that's what we're doing. So the opponent is a teacher. We're all in this matrix where, God gets to know itself through the opposite extremes, as an embodiment process in the physical and the dualistic universe. So when I think of polarity, I think of really an opportunity to create divine creation in the most beautiful way. And it's not by killing the ego or, being an over-consumerist. It's about having this balance where they can learn to love each other unconditionally.
Thank you. Yes, there's a lot of things that come up for me in that piece that you just shared, Mimi. I'd like to give an opportunity for anyone in the room to respond, to reflect on what Mimi just offered there.
Hi, I'm Janet. I want to own that I was late. I was eating dinner.
No problem. We're
excuse.
glad you're here.
Thank you.
No excuses are needed. We're just glad you're here, Janet. Thank you for coming.
The one word I didn't understand a lot of it, Nini, the parts about the numbers, but the one word I heard that comes up for me is duality. Being on this planet, there is duality. Now, I do truly believe, and I will go so far as to say I know, but this is my personal knowing, is that only love is real. So evil is not. I don't even use the word anymore. Once George Bush Jr. started saying axis of evil, I bristled at that, because my belief is that when you call someone evil or a country evil, you're just going to put them on defense more so. I don't care if they're, what they're doing. And so to me, it's all perception. So if somebody comes to me and says, I see evil, as opposed to this is evil, then we have a conversation. But if you say to me, this is evil, well, what am I going to do? No, it's not. And they can go, yes, it is. No, it's not. Yes, it is. Now we have an argument that goes nowhere. So, I could say back to them, I hear you, that you perceive this thing as evil. And they might go, no, it is evil. And I have had these conversations with people. So I'm learning to just sit and listen and know in my heart that I know in my gut there's no such thing as evil. There's just things that appear evil. And I think I shared with you guys the last time I was around, maybe Randy, you might, and Hemeth was here too. The thing about the test, Einstein had done a experiment at the beginning of the century that just made no sense to him. And it was about perception. And then I saw a show on quantum physics that showed balls were being released from a machine at a wall, and the wall was covered with some kind of material that registered the image of the balls, how they were landing on that fabric or whatever it was. And when the person running the experiment was watching the balls do this, he saw like little round circles on this wall. But when he turned away and was not watching the balls, they made a different design on the wall. And I can't think of a better experiment to describe what we're talking about here. But I liked what I did hear. I liked what you said, Nini, about what's a chess game without another person? But a game to me is played with the hopes. There might be competition there, but if you're a healthy person, you know you're playing that game, hopefully to enjoy yourself. But war, once he gets out to being war, now we're not enjoying ourselves. It's not very
Mhm.
fun to have war. But and one other thing I'll say is the story from the Bhagavad Gita. There's a story about Arjuna. No, it's not from it's from the Mahabharata. Arjuna is about to go to war, and the people he's fighting is his family. And he's sitting there talking to Krishna on his chariot, going, "What? I got to go fight my family? This is ridiculous." And Krishna says, "Yeah, you do, because they're acting like jerks over there. You got to go fight them. But the war's already won. It's already done. The whole thing's done. So go ahead and just do it." But it makes. Why did I mention that? Because in that moment there was the perception of the other side acting evil. So I do understand on this earth, there's times when we need to respond to these things that we perceive as evil. But if we could just get it that it's our perception, if everybody could just get that it's not what it is, it's not a thing, it's just our way of seeing it, we might be able to get along a little better. I hope that made sense. Well, it sounded like a lot of rambling to me, but that's to me only love is real. That's what the Course in Miracles did for me. It confirmed that.
That made sense to me. And you're talking about the double slit experiment in quantum physics, where it's the observer effect. When the photons, which is what's hitting the glass plate or the plate with the material, when the photons are being observed and watched, they make a pattern which represents a particle. That photon is a particle, and when they're not being observed, they represent a wave interference pattern. So that what you're saying is the observer effect, and it's very, very true. I agreed with what you said. And as far as the perception, I agree. Like when people come to me, and unfortunately I get triggered, and I sometimes will say, "Well, you're a jerk," But when people come to me, and I see, like one time someone was very upset with me. She perceived that I had hurt her feelings, and she was accusing me of terrible things that I know I didn't do. And when she was calling me out, what I did was I listened very quietly, and I said to myself, something is bothering her. She would not be calling me screaming if something wasn't bothering her. And despite all the harangue, at the very bottom of it, she felt sad because she thought I left her party without even saying goodbye. To which, I didn't see her in the room. So when I was ready to go home, I left. And when I heard what I said to her, I repeated back, in between her screaming, I said, "Oh, so you're upset that, you were making this party and I didn't even say goodbye." She goes, "Yes." And I said, "I am so sorry." I said, "I will know going forward that it is very, very important that I say goodbye to you, and I will make an extra effort because I know that's important." And was I happy with the way she treated me? Absolutely not. But I knew if I just sat there and, even if I was polite, because people can do this, they can act polite on the surface, but, behind their back, "Oh, what a jerk, what a jerk, what a jerk, what a stupid, what a stupid." And I said, "No, I want to find out what is bothering her, and I'll take a risk with this one." This is a very controversial thing, but I will bring up the whole topic of the election. And I'm not talking about who voted for who. This is not what this is about. But I will tell you, I was a little bit very unhappy with the results. And okay, what I did was I could have said, Trump is a jerk. I hate him. He cheated I didn't like the way he showed up last election. I didn't like that he made a whole protest when he didn't win. He was a sore loser, blah, 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 blah. What I did was I took a deep breath and I prayed and I spoke to his subconscious on the psychic level. And I said, "Listen, whether or not I agree with who's in office, you are the one that has been elected. This is what the collective consciousness has voted. I'm going to send you all the love I can. Make a good decision. You have a slogan that the slogan gives me. I'm not going to repeat it because it gives me a very bad frequency, but your slogan, do that. Do that and be that loving person because you're the one right now that is in that position, even though every person has power." And I just poured love. And I feel that's a very important thing because I might not agree personally, but if I sit there and say, "Well, I hate him and he's bad and she's bad," it's like you're saying, Janet, it's a perception thing. And I might have a perception that works for me and it's my truth, but it's not going to be your truth or someone else's truth. So this is what it is. I need to be responsible and play the game. And I say game, not war, in a fair way.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. What comes up for me too, and I'm glad, I'm glad we're talking openly about this because I'm involved with a lot of groups that won't even talk about the election, that don't want to even acknowledge it. But I think it's healthy because what I'm perceiving or what I'm sensing and how I feel this works into law of polarity is that there's dense energies and there's more lighter energies as well too. And I think we get in trouble when we categorize those those feelings or those emotions, and when we are trying to perceive if something is safe, or we're trying to go after what we think we want or whatnot. Those feelings, those energies are a little bit denser. So that's what I think of as more competitive environments. And we kind of need to work through those, to be able to understand ourselves and to understand the other in a more profound way. So that's what comes up for me, especially when we're going through this process of looking at universal principles. How do we make these competitive environments where people are really feeling these dense energies, and how do we help each other, how do we help each other get underneath the root, of what it is that we're experiencing in that moment. Janet, you and I, we've done exercises where we really try to separate out the judgments or the stories that we're telling about, about another person or about a situation. And in that, sometimes there are stories about good and evil, and then we separate that out from the facts or the data. Well, what actually happened? What can be substantiated on what really happened in that moment? And then there's the feelings. And a lot of what I've been talking about with my ministry colleagues recently is the difference between a feeling and an emotion. The emotion has a story to it based on the past. That's kind of what we think of as that judgment or that story we tell ourselves, where the feeling is what the bodily sensation is that's coming up in the moment. So a lot of the work I've been doing recently, doing retreats with executives, doing retreats with ministers, is really being able to separate out the difference between an emotion and a feeling. So being able to get underneath the story of good and evil, is really a major theme now, especially when you're talking about politics, especially when you're talking about those interpersonal conflicts. So thank you both. I'd like to open the floor up. What's alive for you, John, Randy, Hemant? What's alive for you? Do these stories or do these narratives serve us?
Yeah, I would just like to say that it's crazy that we hold on to something so tightly we can't even. At some point, I can't even see what it is I'm holding on to. It like blinds me to what I'm even doing. And when I recognize that, it's like, what was I even thinking? How did I even get into this position? But what I'm hearing from what everyone said so far is a very healthy view of what it is, and what's possible from it. So it's like, for me, it's kind of like a balance between light and dark. I don't view light as good and dark as bad, or vice versa. They're both naturally occurring, and one cannot exist without the other. So it's just a statement, like, where are we now? That's all. It's just a reading. When you get a feeling, it's just a reading. It's just a feeling that came up based on some perturbation that happened in the cosmos. That I was impacted by. Some energy, came across my coils. it's it's very basic, and I think the opportunity for us now is to really just hone in on what is possible, you know, by letting go of that thing, whatever that thing is that blinds me anyway. I don't want to speak for anybody else, but my life is so much more fun when I'm not holding on to things that blind me. I had cataract surgery on my eye a couple of months ago, and I didn't realize to the point to which I couldn't see things, and it's just been an amazing eye-opening, literally and figuratively. I have friends who voted on all sides of the election. I love them all. There's not one of them that I would wish harm on. There's not one person that ran for election that I would wish harm on. And for me to observe them with love, that will make a much bigger impact than any thought or wisdom I think I can add to the to the pot. So I kind of agree with you, Janet. Love is all.
I have to tell you something quick, funny, John. When I had my cataracts done, they do one eye at a time, and you wait a couple of weeks in between. And I would sit in my bedroom and go like this, back and forth, and I couldn't believe the difference in the color of the walls. The
Yeah.
cataracts yellow your eyes. And so I saw with the new eye, I saw how bright the color was when I had first put it up there, and that's life. That really is what you're saying. That's what life is like, do we have splinters in our eyes? Can we just, please, God, take out that splinter, please? But I will say this, that I have my days where I'm terrified that I'm going to lose certain benefits that I have. And, in the next administration. And what I do, right, I turn it into a prayer. Please, God, please, but may the best thing happen for all of us. And the best thing for me may be to lose things so that I work harder getting my work out there. I don't know. Or maybe I rely less on doctors. I can't go to my doctors anymore. And I find new ways to help my body. I do more research. There's got to be a reason. It's all happening for a reason. So, I just turn it into prayer. I'm sorry. I know that others haven't spoken yet, but I get so inspired by these talks.
Thank you, Janet. Samantha, Randy, what's a life for you at this moment? Just kind of taking in this conversation, and please feel free to reflect, respond, ask anybody a clarifying question. That's how we. That's how we. That's how we really have the space or create the space for collaborative environments. So, I'd really like to hear what's alive for you at this moment.
Well, for myself, when I was introduced to the law of polarity, it was using a little different language than we have. I think, I don't know, we kind of nicked the surface of it, and that's duality. So the either or, okay? And how at the time I was very much more in a mindset of absolutes. Things are black or white, good or bad, kind of thing. And what it was basically saying is like, could you have a way of perceiving things that allowed for the grays to exist? And so, what did you mean? And he was like, well, you do realize that hot and cold are not absolutes. That's of course a matter of perception. For one person, hot might be 100-degree temperature. And for a person who lives in Saudi Arabia, that's a mild day. So there's a perception of that. But they're not, even if we were going to say, well, hot and cold are opposites, they're not really opposites. They're both temperatures and they're both relative to each other. So what is on one end of the spectrum and on the other end of the spectrum, these are various degrees of it. And so the grays would be what I'm observing between the two. And again, understanding it's all relative to my life experiences. So that segues into the good old what is evil, what is bad. And basically, I've come to the conclusion that anything I deem evil is what I don't see as beneficial to myself or humanity. And what's good is beneficial to myself and humanity. But why I prefaced it with this based upon personal experiences and their degrees of the same thing, I don't know. I mean, honesty is the best policy. It's right to be honest, kind of segueing into ethics and such. You should always be honest. Well, what about the French resistance when they were hiding, the Jews from the Nazis? you know, and the Nazis knocked on your door and you said, I'm sorry, there's no one here. You know, was that a bad thing? I don't, in my perspective, no, that was not necessarily, again, so that kind of segues into this, you know, what is beneficial, what is harmful. Um, but perhaps to the person who was knocking on the door, they would have considered that as bad. So again, there's so many possibles and probables and different viewpoints on everything that I've gone away from speaking and trying to comprehend in absolutes. I mean, even if we're going to, you know, one time a person was talking to me about absolutes of math, you know, and they said, well, come on, you know, 2 + 2 always adds up to 4. And I'm like, well, 3 + 1 adds up to 4, and 5 - 1 equals 4, and such. So still, there's so many different ways to get to what we're concluding as, I don't know, or again, what we're perceiving as a good or a bad thing. And and so I find a much more easier way to navigate through life is understanding that you say potato, I say okay. In general, again, because right now everything's hypothetical in this conversation, but then all of a sudden when it comes to boots on the ground, and if you see somebody getting beat up, you know, okay, forget theories, forget all these hypotheses and all these words, and you know, you see somebody getting beat up and stuff. I don't know about anybody else and stuff, but I would just feel compelled and stuff to do something some nature. I don't know. Again, that's still a hypothetical. But as you're nodding your head and stuff, there comes to the point where the rubber hits the road. But on the other hand, then there's the discernment and stuff. Okay, somebody's getting beat up. Maybe something's going on here that I physically can't disrupt the violence, and I got to call the cops. I got to call for help. I can't personally do it. So there's still a lot of variables, but there comes a time of discernment of when it's time for action and when time is not. So, yeah, it's what kind of makes life interesting anymore is I've stopped holding tightly to any ideas and trying to have an open mind. And someone says, yeah, but what about this? And that can be a new shade of gray in between the polarities and stuff. And it's like, wow, cool. Thank you for disagreeing with me because now, wow, I got to see something in a new, fresh way. So, yeah, anyway, that's my 2 cents.